Good evening, everyone. It is injury analysis with RunPainFree. I am Jessica, and let's get to it because tonight was a big night with the Giants and the Cowboys and a very sad night for Dak Prescott. But I want to talk about how this was preventable. And so not only hopefully this never happens to him, but another athlete that hears this and many other professional athletes that go through these things can actually hear this and know that there's a way to actually prevent basic injuries that are severe, that can be very severe and cost you your career in some cases. So this was the scene not too long ago with Dak being brought off in tears. And it's just a sad thing to watch. I'm a Giants fan, but to watch any athlete go down when you see basic mechanics that are off on a basic human level, you kind of are waiting for something to happen. And so that's what we're going to talk about first. This is the play right before he got injured. And as you can see, he walks very duck-footed. Duck foot means your hips are off. I'm speaking layman terms because I like breaking it down as best I can. When you're walking duck-footed, you don't have hip support. So that means he's throwing his leg out in front. As you can see, he doesn't have much hip flexion, not picking up his knees that much. He's just tossing his legs out in front of him. That's quite classic for duck-footed people. And a lot of professional athletes actually do that. And if you can see, this is the play where it happens. He's also running that way, and that's how his ankle completely breaks. So what happens when they're duck-footed, they are running on their toes and literally pivoting out every time. That's also turf. That's also a problem. It just is a recipe for disaster for somebody who's duck-footed. That's another story. But talking about his basic human mechanics, when an athlete has basic human mechanics where their hips are off, which means their glutes coming around the sides of them are not functioning, then they don't have the ability to support the hip function. Anything from the knee down is hip. So anything breaking in from the knee down is your hip in dysfunction. You definitely want it to be at your lower leg. You don't want to be breaking your hip. However, for a professional athlete like Dak Prescott, you don't want anything breaking because this could be devastating and ruin your career and put an end to the season like it did just now. What I want to show you is when he runs and he's pivoting, you can see in the slow down, when I saw this replayed, I called the injury before he went down when in the slow-mo. So right there, that's where I first saw his ankle gave in. So I'm going to play it again right there. His ankle had already caved in. So a caved in ankle is, and you can see on the left foot how completely turned out this leg is. It's completely turned out. So both feet are completely turned out. Nothing here is firing. Nothing here is firing. So everything is relied on down here. All this mass, all this quad, all this calf, this is all on this little itty bitty ankle. So it's not much for it to break when it's all that mass on it and he's got velocity on his toe. This is why toe striking is an issue for runners or anybody who is in dysfunction, specifically like a running back or a sprinter. When they're pivoting off their toe and pushing outward, you're caving in your ankle every single time. So if you look at it right there, it actually broke before, right there. It broke before the Giant landed on him. I'm going to do it one more time. And there. It was already turned out before he landed. And where he landed, this is his calf. His knee went into his Achilles. His foot was already completely sideways. So this literally happens seconds before 1, 2, 3, crack, boom. It was already cracked. This is what happens when you have duck feet. And then you build dysfunction stronger with muscle mass. He's pivoting. Look at pivot, toe, pivot, toe, pivot, toe. He's turned out. And so maybe you'll argue, well, just when people are sprinting, they turn out and pivot toe. I'm not going to argue that people don't do that. I'm telling you it's dysfunctional, and this is what can happen from that. There's no greater risk of injury than a football player. They have the worst injuries. They have the most severe injuries because of the level of velocity they are playing at, people hitting each other. There's just no other game like this that these injuries occur. So that's why these can be devastating injuries. His foot's completely crooked here. And that's because he was pivoting on his toe when it happened. And that's just the sad part of it. But this is what happens when you don't address basic human mechanics first and then build muscle on there. When someone sees an athlete with promise, and this happens at all levels, it's just ridiculous when I see it at a professional level, because this should be better than this at this point. And I'm talking about the training staff. When you see somebody in dysfunction, your immediate job is to get them functioning as a human and then build muscle. I say all the time, when somebody comes and starts a brand new sport and they get injured, that's fine. We can fix that super quick. But when somebody has been doing the sport and has been athletically conditioning that pattern and has muscles on top of it and developed muscles, they solidified that injury. So now you have to battle all the muscle to get to the dysfunctional movement pattern, to make it functional, and then build strength on that and solidify that new pattern with proper muscle development. That's a lot more work. That's what these players should have at their fingertips, and to my knowledge, they actually do. So I don't understand how something like this would go unnoticed. And I see too many duck-footed people in professional sports to think it's not being taken care of. It's not being taken care of. That's just what I see. So this is why I'm doing these injury analysis, because this is irresponsible, in my professional opinion. It is irresponsible. This was totally preventable. Now, if he had been complaining, like I said, about any Achilles problems, ankle problems, calf problems, hamstring problems, those are all red flags that he was already in hip dysfunction that was causing a pain of sort. You can be in hip dysfunction and have no pain. You should still address it. All you got to do is look at somebody walk and you can see they're in hip dysfunction. I do it all day. But let's just say if he had complained about anything, there was already a real problem happening. So it was just moments before this was going to happen. It was going to happen eventually. I hate to say that, but it's just what's going to happen. He has too much muscle mass in his quads that are going to put weight on his toe when he's pivoting off and pushing off to run, and that's just a waiting time bomb. That's what that is. It's just what is going to happen. So this was preventable. I hope that they fix his ankle and get the surgery and they go right for his hip and leave his ankle alone. That's what they need to do. Because if they hyper-focus on his ankle and totally disregard his hip, this is not only going to happen again, it'll happen to another side, if not his actual hip in the first place. So this needs to be addressed properly. Functional movement. I know you're in NFL. I love that I'm FMS. I hope that someone is in there watching this and actually goes in on Dak and gets his hips right and gets his feet straight, because that's what's going to save him and his career. That is injury analysis with RunPainFree.